right, what's up, everyone? This is Kirk here again at Option Alpha. So thank you so much for tuning in today. This is episode number 13 here on the Option Alpha show on the Tradier Hub. Really appreciate you all joining in here again. I know we've had a little bit of a hiatus here with scheduling, but I'm glad to get a new show back out for you guys. We've got some really cool new research that I wanted to go over with you and show you how you can potentially use this moving forward inside of your bots and automations. Okay, so what we're going to go through here today is the new research. I think I have it up here on the tab. If you guys just want to switch over to the screen I'm sharing there. Yeah, it's this new research that we published on the SPY intraday price pegging. And so I just want to kind of go through basically what this research is, how you can get to it and how you can access it, and then also how you can use it moving forward inside of your bots. So I'll go show you the way that I kind of think about how to potentially use it. I'll show you another way. My partner and founder, co-founder Jack, he also did that inside the community as well. Okay, so here's what we did inside this research. There'll be a link in the show notes, I believe, for this once we get through here. But what essentially we did is we pulled minute level data for the last 180 days. Actually, when this research was published, it was more than 180 days now that we pulled data for this, but we pulled minute level data on SPX, and we essentially put it into computer and ran calculations and did analysis on it just to see what happened with the S&Ps or the SPX price move at different times during the day. And the whole idea around pegging, this concept around pegging is, could there be anything to capturing the market where it stays in sort of a defined range? So for the example, if the market opens and it's trading at whatever price, it doesn't really matter. From that point forward, does the market generally stay in a 0.1, a 0.3, a 0.4, a 0.5% range by the end of the day? So what we did is we took snapshots in time at different time intervals like 10:30, 11, 11:30, 12, 12:30, et cetera, throughout the entire trading day. These are all at like the entire trading day minute level data for SPX. And then what we did is we captured that time at 10:30 and we then analyzed for the rest of the day, how far did the market move up or down from that 10:30 price that we captured. So just to use round numbers, it's not the S&P numbers, but if let's say SPX was at 100 at 10:30, did it move more than 0.5% for the rest of the day? Or did it move more than 0.1% either direction for the rest of the day, or whatever the case is? And then at 1 o'clock, if the SPX was at 105, did it move 0.5% from that range by the rest of the day, or 0.2% from that range? So essentially what we're trying to do is we're trying to capture that pegging around a certain price range. And so what you'll see inside the actual data here, and we have a nice chart here that we like popped up. So let me just share this tab here. I think it's switched over. It's a little bit bigger, and I'll show you guys where you can get the live data all the time. It's updated daily. But inside of here, you'll see, if I just zoom in here and I go down to the last 90 days, that, for example, if we look at 0.2% out of the money and we go down to say 1:30 p.m. So if we go to 1:30 p.m., it means that at 1:30, if we captured the price of SPX at 1:30, there's a 56%, 56% of the time, let me just make sure I say it right to you guys, 56% of the time, the 1:30 price ended up being 0.2% from the closing price. So said another way, at 1:30, there's a 56% chance the market stays within a 0.2% range by the end of the day. Now, I don't know about you all, but that is insanely powerful information, because what that tells us is that if we can potentially find trades that give a risk to reward of more than 100%, and probably even if it's just right at 100%, if we can find trades that give a risk to reward of more than 100%, and we know we have a quote unquote statistical edge here, at 56% of the time the market stays within 2.2% by the end of the day, that right there is a viable trading strategy that we can start to execute and start to implement. So find trades that are more than 0.2% out of the money. Find those iron condors, wings, credit spreads, whatever, that are more than 0.2% out of the money. And if you find those trades, you know that they have already the last day of expiration, a 0 DTE, they've got a 56% chance of staying out of the money. That's used in the last 180 trading days of data. So that's a lot. That's a good, you could feel generally confident about that number, right? Could it be 57 in the next year, 56, 59? Sure. Yeah, you could be. It could be 49.6 or something, it could be 51, but it's going to be in that range where generally at the end of the day, the market's running out of time. So you find something that's 0.2% out of the money, it's got a 56% chance of staying inside of that 0.2% range. So if you can build a strategy like an iron condor that profits inside of a 0.2% range on either side, then you've got a profitable trading strategy, right? If you can cover that risk to reward with that probability of success, you're good to go. So we also did this for 0.3, 0.4, 0.5. It's very fascinating stuff. So you can see, again, generally how many times the market goes outside of these ranges as it gets closer and closer to the end of the day. So for example, the 0.4% range, just so you can see how we read this, 95% of the time at 3:30, so basically from 3:30 till the end of the day, 95% of the time, the market stays within 0.4% up or down. Now, that is a pretty wide range. So on its face, that's, like you're going to make, if you have a really wide iron condor, right? You've got a really wide position that's 0.4% out of the money on both sides. You got a 95% chance of capturing some premium on that position, right? What may be even equally as telling and just very interesting is that 5% of the time in the last 30 minutes of the day, the market moves more than 0.4%. So if you think about it that way, like look at it from the opposite angle, which I think is very interesting, and potentially we could build some bots around this too, is like how could we use this data in the opposing direction too? Not just inside the range, but flip this on its head and say, okay, if there's a 5% chance that in the last 30 minutes, the market has greater than a 0.4% move in either direction, could we find strategies that pay a ridiculous amount of risk to reward for low premium and potentially capture some of these lottery ticket moves that happen 5% of the time? Now, you're not going to probably, pay your bills with a 5% of the time move because that, could happen here, there, and whatever. But it's an interesting case study to look at and say, could we build something that might do this? The other thing you can look at, and this is one I looked at too when I kind of analyzed this, I wrote it up in the blog post as well. But if you look at the 0.1% range, and oftentimes I see people doing this where they're trying to force in positions just for the sake of being a 0 DTE trader. And it's not all the case, not all the time, but generally speaking, if there's, low volatility or low activity in the market, sometimes you'll see people try to force in these positions that just aren't that far out of the money. And they don't really have good metrics. I mean, you're not really capturing enough premium to cover your risk. It's essentially like you're trying to pick up pennies in front of a steamroller, and you might get steamrolled in the process. But if you look at the 0.1% out of the money metrics, you'll see that at no point ever in all the analysis we did, at no point ever was there greater than a 50% probability or 50% stat of the market staying within a 0.1% range. So this is really interesting too, because if you're building, let's say, an iron butterfly that is made to profit from pinning the market at a certain price for the rest of the day, there's probably not a good chance that you do that. In fact, there's a really low chance you do it. In fact, it's even worse than flipping a coin and guessing at a price, right? So that also is really telling too, is like you can't build these really tall, super skinny, very narrow iron condors because they're just not likely to profit unless they have a ridiculous risk to reward or whatever. It's just not going to be a high probability trade. And that's okay. If you're willing to accept that, that's good. You can do that. But it's just very telling. Okay. So what we're going to do now is we're going to switch over. I'm going to show you where you can find this information. I just switched tabs, so it should still be showing here. But if you want to get this information, we published it on our blog. You can get that for free. If you want to get the updated information as we go, it's updated every single day automatically inside of this new area called research data. So inside of OA Labs on Option Alpha, you can go to this area called research data. Once you click on it, you can get a file for any of the research data that we publish, like options liquidity or 0DTE price pegging. You can just download this file here, click and download it. It gets downloaded right into your desktop, okay? So let me actually just load up this file here so you can see what it looks like today. So let me stop sharing this side, and let me share my other screen here. Okay, so this is our peg data. Give them a second here to load it up. All right, so this is what the file looks like today. So this will be using yesterday's data. And again, it's always updated. You can see that as we go, these numbers are going to change just a little bit from the original ones, and that's okay. If we look at the last 180 days, and again, using this one here as just a good guidepost for us moving forward, you can see that 0.2% out of the money. There's a 56% chance the market stays in a 0.2% range, so pegs to a 0.2% range after 130. So essentially, if you're trying to find a trade that's 0.2% out of the money and you want better than a coin flip odds of winning on that trade, you should wait until at least 1:30 in the afternoon. So after 1:30 in the afternoon, you've got a much better shot of that 0.2% out of the money position actually turning into a profitable trade. So that's what you're going to do. That's how you're going to use this data. So let me stop sharing my screen here. We'll go back again to another slide. I know, guys, in the background, you guys are like, Kirk, you're moving all over the place. I get it. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to go into the 0DTE Oracle, and we're going to show you how you can set up to scan for these potential trades. I can't help the market, like the market has low volatility or high volatility. It's just different trades, different days. So we might find some stuff, we might not find some stuff. It totally depends on the market scenario. It's about 2:12 in the afternoon at the time that we're doing this. So that means we can use all data points from essentially like 2 o'clock moving forward. And it means that the 0.2%, the 0.3, the 0.4, the 0.5 all have above a 50, 60% probability of the market staying within that range. So we're getting kind of tight on the end of the day, which is good because that means we might have some opportunities to find some stuff, okay? Now what you can do inside of here, and I'll just take all these off here so you guys can do this, or we'll do this here together. We'll start basically from scratch. When you go into the 0DTE Oracle, everything is available for you to look at. And it just ranks it by average risk rate of return on all of these different back-tested positions, right? That's by default. What I usually do is I come in here and I go 0 days to expiration, right? Because that way I'm not trading the expirations that expire 1 day from now. I don't want to trade overnight. I just want to trade today because that's what the peg data is showing us. It's showing us just data for today. We'll do data overnight in another research study. So I want to do 0 days to expiration, and I want to specifically do SPX. You can trade other ones if you want to, but for this one, we'll do that. And then what I want to look for is I want to look for positions that are 0.2% out of the money. I want to look for positions that are 0.2% out of the money. Now this right here, I want to do one other thing actually. Sorry, I apologize. I want to also make sure that my spread width is maxed at $5. So SPX is a big product. It could be very large positions. If you want to do large positions, by all means. I like doing small positions and like making sure that my position sizes are really tight. I'd rather do a lot of trades with small positions, make sure the numbers and math work in my favor, then get run over by a big position that I got too anxious about or too excited about. So I'm going to go ahead and do spread is less 5% or less. And I'll do average rate of return, just a low level filter of 1% or more, kind of keeps out anything that doesn't actually work, right? So we'll show you everything, things that work, things that don't work, all the data. This helps kind of filter it out for the things that do work. So right here, you can see this is what is available right now at 0.2% or more out of the money. Now, this is where it gets very, very important that when you're doing this and you're also coupling this with the ability to trade, make these trades, you got to make sure that you're collecting enough premium to cover the actual risk of these positions. So take this position here at the top. This position here at the top is 0.25% out of the money. Now, using our peg data, that basically means if we look at 0.2, we'll use 0.2 rounded down, after 2 o'clock, there's a 65% chance that the market stays within that range. So we need to figure out essentially what the 65% chance minimum risk to reward is for us to accept this trade. Does that make sense? So if we're going to accept this trade, and we're going to trade this trade, I don't know if this risk to reward is enough to actually cover the risk of the position. I know that roughly 35% of the time, the market is going to not move favorable for me. So I don't know if this risk to reward is enough. So here's how you would calculate it out. You basically would take 1 minus your probability of success, which is 65.65. That gets you 0.35. And then you divide that by your probability of success, which is 0.35. And that means that you need at least or divided by 0.65 again. It means that you need at least a 54% risk to reward ratio to make that trade profitable. So if I filter here and I say, okay, I want trades that have at least, let's say 50% or higher risk to reward ratio, I probably need something a little higher than this even to make this a profitable trade. So that's how you would figure it out. Again, let's just go through the math so you understand here. If I have a 65% chance of success on a trade, I can then use just a very simple calculation to determine if that trade or how much I would need to collect risk to reward wise to make that trade. So if I have a 65% chance of success trade, what I want to do, let me actually switch over to my screen here with my calculator. Can I do that, guys? On the back end, let me share my screen with my calculator. Bring up the big calculator. I feel like I'm in math class. Okay, ready? So what we're going to do is we're going to take 1 minus 0.65. That's your probability of success. So we're going to back out your probability of success. That gets you your probability of losing. So 35% of the time you're going to lose. And you're going to divide that by 0.65. That's your probability of success also. Okay, so you divide that there. That's 0.538. That means you need a 53.8% return on risk to make that trade. If you were to do a similar thing with like a 0.5% trade, like a 50-50 bet, and then you divide that by 0.5, you need 100% return on risk for a 50-50 bet. It means you got to be compensated more than 100% if you're going to lose on coin flip type trades. So this one's a little bit different because you're going to win 65% of the time on this trade, maybe even a little bit better. Definitely build in some buffer if you want to build in some buffer as you go. So you're going to win 65% of the time on this trade. But what we're going to do, and we're going to switch back now to the Oracle, but what we want is we want trades that give us more than enough risk to reward to cover the risk in the position. So what we need, if we're going to do 0.2% out of the money, and it's going to be after 2 o'clock, we need a risk to reward greater than, say, 53%. So we'll just put it at 55% right now. And if you look at this, you can see right now there's just not any trades available that meet that criteria. And that's okay. That's what we want. There were trades available last couple days. Some days they are, some days they're not. That's okay. It'll come in. It's updated every single minute of the trading day. So you can just let it run or keep coming in here and refreshing as you go, and you'll find opportunities. Once you put in all of this information, and here's what I do, you can do the same thing if you want to, is I take the numbers from the Peggy Bank, the ones that I really care about. There's 2 main ranges that I care about in the PEG data. And what I do is I put them in as presets. So here are my presets that I have. This one is 11 a.m. Let me just show you what it is. I pulled it up here so you can see it. It's 11 a.m. plus. And at 11 a.m., I'm looking for 30% or 0.3% out of the money and 100% risk to reward ratio. The reason I'm looking for trades that are at least 100% risk to reward ratio is because at 11 o'clock, if you're 0.3% out of the money, you've got greater than a 50% probability of the market staying inside of a 0.3% range. So what that means is if I can find a trade that pays more than 100% risk to reward and it's 0.3% out of the money, I know I've got a defined edge on that potential position. And that's what I want my platform to look for, is I want the platform to look for positions that are 0.3% out of the money with 100% risk to reward after 11 o'clock. So if I come in here and the time is after 11 o'clock, I can look at this one, see if there's any trades that might be available. The other thing I can do is I can use this one here. This one's another favorite of mine. This is after 1:30 p.m. You can come in and look at 0.2% out of the money and 100% risk to reward. Now, technically, you could look at it like 0.5, 55%, something like that, 60%. I still want to go for ones that are super, super high risk to reward. That's why I put it in there, because I want the oddball trades that are just mispriced that I can take advantage of. Again, not today's just not a good day because market volatility is low, but it could be finding other trades in other time periods as it goes. And it has before, which is cool too. So, okay. So all that being said, when you go in here and you find some trades that you like, maybe you find some criteria that you like, you can always come in here and let's say you do find a trade that you like. I'm not saying this is a trade I would take right now, but let's say you do find a trade that you like. If you view the back test and you like it, you go through the whole process with it. What you can do is you can click this new button up here, which is to auto trade. And so when you click that button to auto trade, you can essentially create your own bot. It will automatically create the bot or automatically add that scanner to a bot that you're trading already. And it will look for that criteria that you're looking for. So I can do this. I can say, let's create a brand new bot, call it Kirk's 0DTE bot. It can be a paper trading a bot. You can connect it to your Tradier account if you want to. So we'll do that. Give it some capital. And then this is where you enter all of your details. This is essentially where you're going to use the peg data to then tell the market what type of position that you might want to enter. And so we'll just do that first step here together on the screen so you can see how we would enter it. And then we can modify it inside the automation if we want to for any minimum risk reward requirements we want. So what we're going to do is we're going to look for, let's say, a short put spread position or a short. We're going to look for, oh yeah, we were doing an iron condor. Yeah, perfect. We're going to look for the short put leg of the iron condor. That is going to be 0.3% below the underlying price or lower. And then we're going to do the short call. We're going to do that 1.3% above the underlying price or higher. So that'll get us our two kind of inside wings of our iron condor. And then what we do with the long put is we go $5 below and $5 above. That makes it just pretty standard, pretty easy. $5 below, $5 above, you're good to go. And then we'll do position size as one contract. Now, in this case, with the minimum price here, we can adjust this later on. But of course, the lower the price point, the lower the risk to reward that you have. If you're collecting less money, that means your risk to reward is lower. So if we're going to do a 0.3% out of the money position, right? And we're going to do that position, we know it's got a 50% probability of success after, say, 11 o'clock, then we want 100% risk to reward. And so 100% risk to reward is going to be at least a price over 250 for the spread. So if we have a position that's priced, we want a price that's over 250 for the spread. Again, you can modify this in there, but you're basically going to take your $5 that you have and you're going to multiply it by the 0.5% probability of success, which is going to give you the 100% risk to reward is at least 250. If you wanted to stretch here, you could go say something like 255 or whatever the case is and try to get some more premium out of the position. Now, this is the really cool part here, which is we start with the entry time, or this is the time that we're going to scan. Now, because we set this up from a back-tested result, it could peg, no pun intended, it to scan just for this opportunity exactly at 220 every day. But because we have the peg data, we can also expand this time to scan multiple times during the day. For example, from 11 a.m. all the way until 3:45 in the afternoon. So we don't want to enter positions at the end of the day. We can enter them 15 minutes before the end of the day. But we're setting this one up to say, look, if we're going to scan for this opportunity, because we know if we can get 0.3% out of the money after 11 o'clock and capture at least 100% risk to reward, we're going to be good to go. So we're going to scan for this opportunity all day, every day from 11 o'clock to 3:30 in the afternoon. Now, if you want to do some other entry conditions, you could do some stuff like this. Like you could say max VIX is, let's say, 40. So if market goes crazy, don't enter a position. That would be something I would do as well. You could also do the percentage change, like if the market is down, let's say 2%, or the market's up, let's say 5%, then, whatever the case is, you don't make a trade, or whatever that range is that's important to you. So the market has some crazy movements during the day. You filter those out. You don't do those. I don't care about those. Our data, even the PEG data, shows and uses like last week or 2 weeks ago now, when the market had kind of a mini crash on Monday, what people are calling like the Black Monday of August. That's already included inside this data, so it doesn't really matter. Then the last thing that you would do is you could potentially skip days with FOMC meetings. That's fine if you want to. I personally don't care. I don't do a lot of skipping with those FOMC meetings. You're more than welcome to trade through them, but you can skip them if you want. Or you could only trade on certain days of the week. So you could filter these out and say, you know what? I don't ever want to trade on Fridays, just Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, whatever the case is. Okay. Once you're good to go, you simply hit the button to create the bot. The bot is now created using your data. So if we go over to the settings, you can see under our entry data, it says, can the bot open a new position? Sure. Does it pass all the market conditions? Like the market closes today, it's a normal day. The VIX is between 0 and 40. Remember, we added that filter, so just kind of wrote the decision recipes for you here. And in this case, the mid price is greater than or equal to 0.55%. Now, here's the deal with this one. If you wanted to for this opportunity, what you could do is you could also add another opportunity filter. And that's all we're doing here is we're just adding another opportunity filter here for our bot. And we're checking this one here, which is that the opportunity risk reward is favorable for the probability of profit. So I know I did all these calculations here, and I know you're thinking to yourself, there's no way I can do all those calculations, Kirk. I can't do them on the fly. I can't do them whatever. Fine, no big deal. Go in here and see if the opportunity risk reward that you're looking for is, I don't know why there's 2 iron condors here. That should be exactly the same here. Exactly 0 days, 5%, 3%, above, below, above. Okay, cool. All you can do is use this recipe right here, which would automatically check for you. So you could say the mid price is greater than this. That's like checking 2. And you can add this recipe here if you wanted to. You can even remove this recipe and just add this one here, which would ensure that the risk to reward is favorable for the probability of max profit. So if your max profit probability is going to be greater than X amount, then it would check and ensure that your risk to reward is favorable for that probability of max profit. It's a really good recipe, easy one that you could potentially use inside your bots and automations. Once you're good to go here, you just hit save. And then in your open position action, it does exactly what you wanted. It does all of the different checks and balances in here, puts in your price. If you have any additional entry criteria, you could put it in here. If you have any additional position criteria, you could put it in here. Sometimes what people like to do is they go in here and say expires before next FOMC, no X dividends. If they trade something with dividends like SPY, the bid-ask spread has to be less than X. Probability of profit has to be greater than Y, whatever the case is. So you don't have to do those, but those are all available for you. You can also set your exit options if you want to, use some tags. It's all in here for you. It's kind of pre-built, and then you can build on top of it as you go. So it's really fun. You can do that inside of your bot. Once you're good to go, you hit save. Just turn this automation on. It runs all day, every day from 11:30, whatever it was, 11 to 3:45, looking for those opportunities inside of your bot. Okay. So the other way that we can do it too, and this is really cool. This is like more of a progressive approach and like a stair-stepped approach, but let me just switch over to the tab here so you guys can see this one. I think I switched over to the right tab. Yep, cool. So Jack shared his version of the template, which is the piggy bank. So this takes what we were just talking about, and it takes it just one step further in the scanner. Now, remember, you can go into the community and just clone this one. A lot of people have already cloned it and probably using versions of it, but you can pre-look at the actual scanner automation here. And what he's doing inside of his is he's doing a stair-step progression of multiple types of entries. So what we did today is we did just the first leg, you could say, of that entry. And in this case, what he's doing is he's doing a multiple tiered approach. So he's starting from the furthest out of the money, which would be 0.5% below, above and below. So the furthest wings, like find the biggest, widest iron condor that's available with great risk reward metrics. If you find that, enter the position. Okay, if you don't find that, find the next closest, right? And he stair steps into a 0.4%. And then if you don't find that, find the next closest at 0.3 and just progressively get tighter as the day goes on. The other cool thing that you can do with this is you can also set different times in here. So one thing that you could do is clone the bot template, add a decision recipe for a different time of the day that this actual risk to reward would make sense. Plus it's after, say, 2:00 in the afternoon or after 11:30 in the morning or whatever the case is. There's a lot of different ways that you can kind of work with this peg data. So I hope this was really helpful to kind of go through this and show you guys how some of this research works. As a reminder, the research is available on Option Alpha. You can go to the PEG research post, or you can just go into the Option Alpha platform, click on OA Labs, and then go into the research data section. But it's really powerful data. It's stuff that I'm using inside of my bots now. We're going to be doing a workshop actually tomorrow for some of our Alpha 1 members, kind of going through 0DTE and how we're using it for bots. So if you're a part of that, you'll be able to jump in there and see that. But hopefully you guys enjoyed this today. It was a great going through some of this research. I hope to do some more of this research with you guys on some of the future episodes that we do here and shows in the Tradier Hub. So make sure you tune in for those. And until next time, happy trading. Take care.
You know how the financial world goes. Here comes the buzzkill. Please make sure to take some time to read this boring disclaimer. We will owe you one.